So, I guess everyone can see my screen on the shared screen. I also put a link there for the Padlet, which we will be working on during the session. But let me just briefly tell you about, before we start the workshop, what, who am I, which group I represent. So I'm Evelina Dineva, and I work with Precious Plastic and was one of the founders from Precious Plastic Hamburg. And I already noticed a few things, maybe about the communication. I'll appreciate your help, and if you call for attention, maybe just turn your mic briefly on if I overlook something, because I'm gonna be alone during the session, because currently I'm in the States, but my whole team of my partners with whom we do that are in Germany, and we just don't have the opportunity to co-host this event. Especially many of us are working other jobs than Precious Plastic, have main jobs, have families. School is starting this week in many places around the world, so unfortunately I'll be running that alone. And so consider that if something is unclear, stop me, call for my attention. I think we have 2 hours time, so that should be doable. And I already asked about the German and English. Maybe it's a warning, so or not so much as a warning. We have at the core of this workshop would be 4 movies that we, Precious Plastic and others, produced. The educational music about plastic recycling, circular economy, and so on. And so I developed a couple of questions with which we use for educational purposes in schools. We've been running this workshop like live without the movies as workshop, which is really hands-on, so it's a bit of transition to try to do this online and without any hands-on experience of recycling the plastics. So the videos would be our main resource, and unfortunately we don't have them yet translated into English. But since we are very few people, and because we have like entire 2 hours, I'll be more than willing to help, walk with you through the videos and explain as needed, translate as needed what the main points are in the movies. But I hope a lot of them is animated, and I hope it's going to be pretty much self-explanatory. And we're going to work with the videos. So and we're going to use the Padlet, and then I'm going to, since few new people joined, repost the link here for the Padlet, from which I'm presenting right now. You don't need it straight away, but soon. And still maybe let you... So this whole project about developing educational tools, which includes the videos, but also machines that can be brought to schools that are small enough for kids and the age like 8 and up to work on them, were financed by the FORCE project from the European Community, that's Cities Cooperating for Circular Economy. And that was mostly supervised by the municipal services, the Stadtreinigung in Hamburg. And the first few words about, I don't know, do you know Precious Plastic? Maybe give me a few brief sign in the chat. Okay, I have 1, 2 yeses. Maybe okay, most of you do seem to know what Precious Plastic is. Then, in few words, it's open source community, open source mostly for hardware tools, but the most important thing is that we are integrated all over the world. So there's and it's enthusiasm and activism, so everyone can participate, and it's empowering. So we have the power to do things and change. So you then probably know the general sketch of the precious plastic machines. So it's all DIY, do it yourself. So we developed in Hamburg 3, but now probably even 4 of the machines. Like one of them is to shred the plastic, like to make it small, and all the others operate in the same principle, more or less. You take the shredded plastic, melt it, so you apply heat and pressure. And within this project, the 4th project we did, so what you see here is 3 of those machines in one. So here's the injector. On one side, here's a tiny shredder to shred plastic, and it's manual. And now we're looking from one side. On one side is a shredder, on the other side of the machine is an oven, a small oven where we can melt the plastic. And maybe a little bit more about the specific Hamburg. Hamburg was named 2019, Hamburg joined the Fab City community. So this is a lot of different Fab Labs that are in Hamburg, but also other associations who are concerned with do-it-yourself and maker spaces, accelerator spaces, combine forces, and join the Fab City community in Hamburg. And the goal is really, again, through participation, to make a transition from consumers to doers or makers. And now this is for today. The 3, so basically the main message of our work and this workshop is that Kunststoff is Wertstoff. So basically it's a message of precious plastic, and it really says, it brings it to the front that plastic is precious. And for that I like to point like 3 core aspects of plastics, just general things. First, that's what I call the ABC. It's multi-purpose. There are many sorts of plastics. Then we have that plastics are formable. We can apply heat and pressure. So we melt the plastic and make it to something new. So they're quite recyclable, and they're also very durable. Yeah, that's basically what I said. After we shred it, we can transform plastics. So it can be also a resource. But we still have the following problem, and that's why we develop all this educational material around plastics. Is I'll translate this page, that's still in the German original. We have many products made out of 100% recyclable materials, especially plastic products, but only 10 to 15% are really recycled. And maybe if you use the chat and tell me what you think the reasons might be why so little plastic is recycled. I'm afraid I don't hear. Somebody was talking. Yeah, because it's mixed. And yeah, I think I'm preaching to the choir here. So yeah, it's difficult to clean. It comes mixed, and a lot of materials are hard to, and we need to remix, so basically segregate it into different types, and it's hard to tell which they are. And also we have a lot of composite materials. Okay. Yeah. Oh, actually, I had translated that in English, but yeah, yeah, the mix. Okay. So, as I said in the beginning, and since few people joined now, um, we're gonna have a workshop here. So, and that workshop was firstly developed for schools. So, bear with me, and maybe if you feel that gets a little bit boring, just try to look through it through the eyes of doing educational sessions yourself. So maybe try to find a instead of thinking about plastic recycling and circular economies, think about how well, and I'll appreciate your feedback about how well that works as a teaching concept. So, okay. So I'll post the link to the Padlet, and then let me see. So we have, you probably see here on my screen, and give me a sign if you don't, the Padlet, to which I posted the link, and I'm not sure how. Here. To make it bigger. I'm sharing the screen. Admit. Okay. Okay. Maybe if everyone can go to the Padlet, and then in the first column, I explain first what the task. So we're gonna have basically, we have 5 parts, and the first 4 parts are based on the movies that we produced with the FOSS project. So there's, you can go down to the green part. I would recommend to start with that, and try to answer by adding a commentary here. You can add the comment in the Padlet. 3 lead questions, three questions, and then maybe watch as next thing. You can watch the movie, stop the movie, and let me know if you need some kind of help with the German, and then try to answer the questions or add more, like a follow-up to the questions. So I hope we can start a discussion about the 4 different themes that we try to touch upon with the movies. Okay, that's okay. Thank you for the feedback. Okay. And so basically each unit is the same. You have the movie on the blue, that's usually links. Then we have in green the questions. In orange is some for people who want to use this. It's the original worksheets for the school. And the purple one is additional links. So basically you can, for now, that's for follow-up if you like to access the Padlet at a later point. But yeah, what we're going to be working is really the movies and the questions. And each movie is about, except the last one, it's shorter. Each movie is about between 6 and 7 minutes. The last one is just a little bit over 4 minutes. And we have 2 hours time. I would say let's start. I have no sense how the whole thing works online and how much time it's going to be, but I'll be really interested to hear, yeah, your opinions on, or not opinions, your contributions, your knowledge, to collect like a knowledge base about those questions. And I would say let's start with unit part 1 or unit 1, and then we'll go from there. Maybe, and yeah. Please, answer the questions, add commentaries directly into the Padlet. I'll resend the link in a minute for everybody who joined a bit later. And watch the movies. And I'll shut up for now. And here so if anybody has questions, please feel free to ask. Oh, it's a double link for some reason. Let me... I don't know why that is, but yeah. I hope that works now. Unfortunately, since we are all separated around the world, can I have some kind of feedback where you were at? If you think rather reply to the questions, but verbally, feel free to do so. I don't want to interrupt people, and I don't want to get people bored. So. Thank you for the note. Have a good day. Sorry for the interruption, but I would say maybe give me a sign who is still watching the video, and I would think maybe we can skip the written discussion. That might take too long, and instead just go through the questions verbally once after we watch them. It was Valdo, absolutely. And and yes, maybe to everybody, this workshop is not really meant to be done synchronous with the discussion. So maybe one of the important things teaching online, being an educator, is when making workshops online, that it's more helpful to have a lot of asynchronous material, and that's how it is thought about. So working on it at your own pace when you can, and then just submit to summarize the results would work quite well. So if anybody likes to use those videos, translate them, or help push us to translate them, feel free to do so. So I think 1 or 2 people joined recently. So what we are working on is I put the link in the Padlet, in the chat from Zoom to a Padlet, where I have links to 4 videos, and I think most of us have watched by now the first video. Maybe if somebody is still watching the first video, maybe give me a sign, and I would say we can then try to go address the questions. Yeah, I got the message. We can absolutely touch base and to work with schools, with I don't know how to pronounce this, Vinam, Vinam, I don't know, maybe I need some help there. But yeah, we're interested in collaborating, and I myself don't do much of the tech stuff, at least not with the hardware, but some friends of mine who actually did those machines are. But I'll be more than glad to collaborate in developing activities and stay in touch. So maybe give me a sign if somebody's still watching the videos, then we'll wait, otherwise I can continue talking. Thanks, Osvaldo, for where you are, in which where you are situated. Well, that's something. A couple of continents there. So I think having a little bit of your backgrounds and interests okay. Now again, to everybody, somebody still watching the videos? Then I'll give some more time, otherwise so I don't see any response, then I'll continue talking. Stop me if need be. So maybe then I can just generally tell something about those videos. So the first video, maybe even if it's not the videos are only in German, but maybe I can tell you, since you're interested in storytelling and using and doing workshops in other places. I think maybe we can rearrange the workshop to be at that level and take this just as an idea. So I think the general idea here is to have these videos, and each video has certain core messages, and for the workshops I try to capture those core messages with the questions, which also based on worksheets. The worksheets look, so basically it's the same questions that you see there. Here for the first video is one more question, because in German there are different names for plastic which more or less mean the same, but if we work with smaller kids, it's good to level up the language that we use. And what we address first is really to show the process of plastic production, from the extraction, a little bit of the history, from how it was developed, but mainly how plastic is produced mostly from petroleum traditionally. Like give a little bit of numbers how that is, and what a linear, I think, because we want to explain what circular economy is, I think we start with saying the status quo, what is a linear economy, that we start by extracting petroleum to producing plastic, producing some products, throwing them away. Then we work with the kids to really try to explain what really economy means, and then focusing on what kind of problems this linear economy might cause. And I think, as you all probably know, few of the most important ones is petroleum is a finite resource, so we don't want to use the resources for future generations. We also have that along the process CO2 is produced, and the other one is that we have big amounts of garbage that we need to somehow deal with. What could be eco-friendly? I'm not sure if I can answer this question when we walk through the other videos. I think I think eco-friendly or sustainable is my answer to that would be try to think in circles. Produce circular economy such that there is little waste. It's really, plastic is valuable, even if it's from petroleum. If we can manage to do products that we can properly recycle, that's eco-friendly enough, I would say. But the reason I stress petroleum here is because petroleum is a finite resource. Once we use that petroleum and make plastics out of it and burn these plastics later on, that resource is really gone forever. Or if it lands in the oceans and we don't have access. So basically, once we make plastic, it's better to recycle, somehow find ways, close the loop such that these plastics can go back into the economic system and it's not waste at the end. There's another question: what tools and equipment do you use to recycle the plastics? We use, for this workshop we used a simple machine that we really specifically did for schools, and it's shown in the movie as well. So even that's actually the next movie. You can see the machine in action as well. And here the goal of it is really to show how relatively easy is the actual process to recycle plastic, and that's not the problem, the recycling process itself. So the machines are fairly simple. Everyone potentially can build them. It's also fun building these machines. People can come visit our workspace. Not right now because we are moving, but yes, exactly. Plastics is more eco-friendly. Plastic is more about the process than about the material. But yeah, I think material is also important to see. Material is a resource, be it petroleum or plastic itself. It's a resource and it's valuable. That's why we call it ourselves precious plastic. It's a valuable resource that we should treat that way. And so I think maybe we can go on then with the next movies. We don't. I would skip the watching, especially because they're in German. I think if somebody said that they're interested in storytelling or doing workshops, maybe you feel free to contact me. You can find contact Precious Plastic Hamburg. The videos are on YouTube, so I can maybe watch them at a different schedule, and I can help translate. And I can move to the second video. I think the second video answers a couple. The second video is really about presents how we recycle, and I think first of all first it goes to different. So we have the plastics ABC. So we start with saying that plastic has multi-purposes. It can be a lot of also good things can be made out of plastic. Medical products sometimes are much lighter. It can be molded in many different formats or printed. So it's a very versatile resource, but it comes to the expense that they are very, even though like chemically, the chemical composition is very similar between hard and say soft plastics, so flexible and durable. But these things we try to explain in this video for the kids that they're different types of plastics. They have different melting temperature, let's say, and therefore we cannot work with them together. So basically one of the prerequisites to recycling is really sorting, identifying plastics and sorting plastics. So what you see in the video is how we sorted by hand and oh cool, thank you for the feedback on the videos. So maybe then I'll make a little break and let you watch the videos and can do the same thing. You might need to help the others. I could not find how to auto-translate English. On my computer it would let me do only captions in German.
Yeah, after you enable the auto caption, then you get an extra option about auto translate, and in there you can select another language. So you need to do it in 2 steps.
Okay, well then let's watch the second video and I'll have a little break from talking. And let me know if you're done with this. Whenever somebody's done with the second video, give us some feedback, then I would know when to start talking again. Okay. Maybe let me know if somebody is still watching. Since I don't hear any replies, I'm gonna resume talking, but also feel free to interrupt or... Okay. Plastics and pets are collected the same. Wow. Maybe you need to elaborate on that. I cannot imagine, but as well to how that works. But also PAT. Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. So I'll give you a little bit of the idea of the second video for educational purposes storytelling. I think what is important to us to really also tell a little bit the background about industrial processes, how plastic is separated, and that's really one of the most difficult tasks. And when we do go to schools, I actually ask people to bring trash, mostly plastic trash, but a lot of recyclables, and do start really with the kids sorting the plastics several times. So one of them is to really sort it by material, so they can use the numbers that there are. I have also like a little infrared scanner that they can use, and that's more like really to experience what's the difficulty or the challenging parts in automatically separating plastic, and why such like the PET bottles. That's one of the examples I have in the talks as well, that's actually where plastic is recycled quite well, and that's because here we have really a circular economy. So in Germany at least, PET bottles are part of a so-called deposit system. So it's a relatively high deposit for bottles, so many people bring and they're collected separately. So that's a simple example of a circular economy. And another so we look also, I use the infrared scan also to see, okay, in a factory you usually try to do that automatically. Those are not very precise. They have problems when the plastic is too dark, so that a lot of examples like that. Then I think that might be because we're international community here. Depending what is a recyclable, really very much depends on the place you are and how the city or or community, how your community recycles, like how the municipal works, because in different places, depending the collection systems work differently. For instance, I'm currently in Bloomington, Indiana, and here the trash is really quite clean. So they collect only very few types, is very explicit, only 3 types of plastics, only if the number is on it, and if it's not a bag, and if it's not dirty from food. So people really wash the plastics before it goes into the recycle bin. In Hamburg, it's quite a big of mix. They're like, it's also a bigger city. It goes through different type of industrial system, but there's also a lot of it is burnt at the end. But what works best and how recycling works really depends on the post-processing. So understanding this post-processing can help everyone as an individual to to understand how well a single product is recyclable. So that's one of the things we stress in this unit with the second unit. And losing my... And so basically for Hamburg, I can say it's really black plastics cannot be recycled because the infrareds don't see them. Plastics with big, also for the same reasons, if you have big labels that are stick on, that's almost like a composite materials, then nobody's gonna separate them. And also composite materials are quite bad, so we don't have the facilities for that. So they are basically burnt at the end of the day. So let me go to my questions. So yeah, plastic can be useful, and I think everybody can list their own keywords. And that may be one of the reasons why we're still, and that's really more debate question, why we cannot just get rid of plastics. And what also another debate, so like mostly a question to trigger creativity, to really think, understand the different types of plastics, and then different need to be treated in post-processing. And then we walk through different types of identifying plastics, because that's the prerequisite for sorting. And then describe those methods of a good understanding. And since some of you have already watched the other videos, I might just continue. Actually, it might even be confusing right now out of memory. So, so basically we need to separate plastic, that's another focus. And then we talk about the life cycle of products. So some products, that addresses the third point of the list of the ABCs of plastics. So plastic is in fact very durable, but still we use it a lot in a single use, and also often in a way that it's not really meant to be recycled, at least not by the current facilities. So that's an important thing to understand, product life cycle, and what it is a product life cycle. If it's made of plastic, what about the product life cycle if it's made of biodegradable materials? So understanding these differences, basically it's really thinking about materials, what is their use, and how can we make, starting to address the design process, to really question in what cases do we need plastics for a product, when is it the most useful material, when can it be replaced by different more fitable material, for instance for a short life cycle, for a bag that is made out of plastic, does it need to be plastic? And so that's against trying to find at least 3 examples of plastic products with different life cycles. It's really stressing again the fact that most life cycles are misused. So the very fact that plastic is very durable, which actually causes one of the problems when it lands in landfills, it takes like ages to degrade, and I think the first video also shows that it's a big problem is that plastic is photodegradable under sunlight. It degrades, but it degrades in microplastics, and really actually parts that are very difficult, if not impossible, to collect. And they land in our oceans, they land in the soil, and it's a big problem with plastic pollution. So from that perspective, thinking about the life cycle and what happens to the product after you use it. That's one of the points here, and the other one is really about the design process, that what a good plastic, and as well, like that leads a little bit to the last video. To enable circular economy, we need to know what is going to happen with the plastics after the product use, after we use a product at the end of the day. And it's also like the video pretty well mentions a couple of design criteria, and there's, I think, no limit to the fantasy what we can think of. But I think one is really to think critically about what the life cycle is, and the other one is to really take this life cycle thought as a part of the design process when you try to provide and think creatively about new designs and how to use plastic. Okay, do you have any questions about that so far? Then I'm gonna move on, have a sip of water.
I have a question about the infrared scanner for plastic. Yeah. Is there like a DIY version that you can add to your process?
DIY? Yes and no. It's actually a very difficult. They're like I think really there are some who have tried to do it DIY, but it doesn't work so well. So I think it's still a process of research to make it. So far we have like only some small companies. We ordered that ours from London and Great Britain that have like handheld devices. And one of the problems is really calibrating the lights. And we also try to build our own, but we ordered the LEDs, or the infrared, not the LEDs, the infrared light. So basically it points light and reads out. I think one is the software thing that can be done, but the hardware, getting the sensors and calibrating those, it's still quite a bottleneck. And we ordered some new LED light emitters and never couldn't and worked here with the Technical University in Delft and still could not make it work. So it's work and research in progress, but it's really tough, and it's one of the problems really is that light is very different, and lighting conditions and a lot of things are too similar, and yeah. At least now we don't know yet of any DIY that really light sensors that really work.
Thank you.
And I think these small sensors that we bought, they cost about with taxes and everything, about £800, which is quite, I think, quite a bit of money, but I think it's really calibrating those sensors. A lot of the work that people have to do, and doing it on a small scale is not easy.
So the sensor that you're buying from London, they're used in the industrial facilities, right? They're the same instrumentation.
Yeah, it's the same instrumentation, but yeah, in it.
Yeah, handheld form.
Mojito. I call them Mojito, but it's not the right way. I can never remember the name, but yeah. Okay. And they also, but you know, it's also a small business. They're trying to you know, empower people, you know, give you the devices such that you can do part of these industrial processes, you know, yourself. But on the other hand, what is good, they also move towards textile. They do also sensors that can differentiate different type of textiles, and that apparently is even more tough. So, and I think for that they even had two type of prices depending on the precision you need. So, the more precise, the more difficult they are to calibrate, and the more precise sensors and like hardware you need to, and software to work with them. But or maybe in another thought about we worked, as we said, with this FOSS project, and part of it, and the main city who worked on plastics recycling is Denmark. It's Copenhagen, and what they did is really develop a facility where they also process black plastics. So, like at this on industrial level, sensors are also being developed and improved. Another thing they worked is really on product design. I think I found that also very interesting as a background information for schools. So, and what they really did is to develop 10 type of prototypes for products that can be done out of recycled materials to basically see how well a market space can be developed for recycled plastic products. So if you think about circular economy, it's a very different and very highly interdisciplinary subject. So one needs to consider the economic parts, the technical parts, the creative design process. So I think it's exciting. Which I think in a class session really gives different people to, you know, bring what they know best forward. Okay, so moving on to the last video. Okay, I started there with a question which is not addressed in this video at all, but in the class session is also about the how organic material, what do we actually understand about circular economy? That, you know, a product degrades and become part of the soil, for instance, or produce energy. So there's a cycle that has very little waste. And that's also mostly meant for bringing the kids into a state of mind to understand what circular really means, and this endless and regenerative power that nature has. And then, of course, then there's the question, how can we do that with and then get ideas how one can do circular economy for non-plastic products. One is, like was mentioned already then in Unit 3, to think about the design process, to think about what is going to happen with your product while you're designing, but also try to define markets for recyclable materials and collection circles to close loops. And then, so there is maybe a circular economy. I think that if you design a circular economy, there are many different types. So because and they can be constantly improved. That's why I think it's important in a workshop session with children to really stress the diverse types of circularity that can be approached. And in the videos we stress also the difference between recycle, reuse, refuse. And then the last activity is really try to use your fantasy and think about researching or inventing circular economies yourself. And the rest is additional material, which probably can be found in similar ways in different languages.
Have you tried recycling the plastic they already recycled once? Like the object you made, for example, in the video, you show the plastic cup. Can you then recycle it again and make it back into shredded plastic?
Yes and no. I mean, I think one point that I like very much to stress is that each time you recycle plastic, you downgrade plastic. So basically, this this recycling that we do with these machines is downgradable. So each product, unless you do like PET, which is very clean, one sort, something with the deposit, as soon as you have some mix, so even a PET is not equal PET, especially like when you have international, like a global market with stuff imported. So I think, for instance, everybody knows probably this little shell, they're called shells. This is the plastic where very often vegetables in the supermarket stored. So they're used for transportation, they're light, most of the times they're transparent. But every country has different regulations. So if you buy grapes, for instance, that were grown in South Africa, let's say, or some that were imported from Latin America, the shells would be maybe both plastic type or recycling type 1, but they would be slightly different. And as soon as you mix them, you lose purity and quality. And you also often lose transparency once you melt plastic. So each time, yes, we do often, because this hand process of plastic is also very imprecise. So sometimes there's not enough in the tube, or when we press it into a form, it doesn't come out perfectly. So if we recycle it straight away without going through a usable cycle, we can very much reuse the plastic there. But as soon as you work with a mix, you definitely lose quality.
Thank you.
And I think that's a very, very important part of designing circular economies, to how to bring the material and how to deal with the problem that you're gonna reduce quality. So the mechanical recycling that we do with this with the shredding and then melting and applying forces is quite an efficient way to recycle. So we need to think far more in circular economies to approach a much better efficiency the way we recycle. And I think maybe I can go to the last slide with few examples for small circular local economies that, some are from Precious Plastic Hamburg, others are from other organizations. So this is, for instance, as I said, we work with the municipal facilities in Hamburg. This is the so-called Stadtreinigung Hamburg, and what they have together with the Technical University in Hamburg is really made a guide how to basically recycle, or not recycle, but the core message of this guide is, so the less plastic you use, the better it is. But also, if you have to use plastics, let us give you a few rules how you can understand which one can be recycled. So that's really about how to support consumers to be educated about decision making, what is a good packaging design that allows for to protect the product, but also to be useful after we don't use the package anymore. After it's so that's one point. Another one is, you probably have heard about that from, I think, the Rotary Club, not only in Germany, I think it was worldwide, and that's they wanted to collect the lids. And so I think every time you collect 500 lids, they donate one polio vaccination. And I think those lids are very small, but it's actually, they are usually from water bottles or other bottles. They're quite very good plastic quality, but they're often too small for municipal services to really deal with them and have them part. So like collecting this, basically extracting somehow the valuable plastic from where you live. So that's the motivation for this call for collecting lids. And I'm originally from Bulgaria, Sofia, and that's like when you walk through the city, you see everywhere collection stations where you can put the lids in it. And another one is really if it's one-way plastic, does it really need, one-way packaging, let's say, does it really need to be plastic? And that's with some of the people in Precocious Plastic, they have built a press, you see here, and which uses basically bio waste. For instance, we built this machine is basically to produce mostly cups or shells that are made out of, let's say, coffee grains or other biodegradable products. So if something doesn't have a long life cycle, to get back to the vocabulary from the previous sessions, from the movies, then it doesn't need to be made out of something that's gonna last 400 years and be just thrown away. So basically stop the use of plastic when you at the beginning, before refuse basically, and think creatively to use what is appropriate to the need. If you need a cup, to use it a few times. Take a cup that can then basically be part of the natural circular economy. That was one of the first events that we did. The second event with Precocious Plastic, and we called for people to bring we worked together with a little independent company who do bar soaps for just normal body soap, but also hair soap. And the idea here is also bring your let's say 3 bottles of shampoo, make out of them a soap holder, and use afterwards a soap shampoo, or like basically hard shampoo. And I think as an event, it's not a big deal, but I think what this reduces is not only it extracts again like quite good quality plastics in a way such that we can easily look at the numbers collected, shredded, and have a quite clean, unmixed, like one kind of material to work with that's pre-sorted. But also, once you do your soap holder, you don't need to buy these plastic bottles anymore. So you can use like a soap, which has many advantages. You don't need more packaging. it can, oh, it has very simple packaging, but the other one is you don't need to buy any. I think one of the things with shampoos and this shower gels and so on is that they have a lot of water. So basically, we need produce plastic bottles to transport water, and that's also very inefficient in terms of CO2 production because water is relatively heavy. So we need and therefore, like the transportation of those soaps, that the liquid is very inefficient from an environmental point of view. If you think about the bill, the trade-off of use. So if you, with the bar soap, you really reduce transportation cost and avoid plastic production. So, and yeah, this is just few things to really trying to get the kids into thinking when I really do need plastic, and if I do, how can I bring it back to the system such that it can be a useful, can have a useful second life. Well, I think from my point, that's I will thank you for listening and for working with me. This, for me, that's quite early in the morning, and just about almost 7 o'clock. So we have still a bit of time for discussion, but yeah, I'd like to open the stage and maybe go towards more questions. And yeah.
I have one quick question. So you're doing this workshop with kids, right? In school. What is the kind of the more positive reaction that you see at the the content that you show them? Like, do you usually you see them reacting better in the recycling bit or in the kind of shredding the plastic or?
Well, they have fun shredding the plastic. So when we do that online, when we did this in real class, it was a very different format. So I really like to work interactively, and so and it's surprising, let's say, how, if one of the classes that we did was to sort trash that people brought like 3 or 4 times. So once by number, once by using the scanner, and then putting everything back together. And what we did is, I forgot to mention that I used that guide from the Stadtreinigung, what is a good recyclable material and what not. And basically grade the plastic. Is this a good recyclable packaging? Is this not so good recyclable packaging? This is really the worst. It's one way use only. And the kids collaborate. Even though the task is sort your trash. But actually, what I didn't mention, after we did all this. Different, and what we also did play at what I like to do in the real units as well is to go into a little bit more into the sciences to understand the materials. So next to I presented like melting temperatures from the main precious plastic in Netherlands. They have these tables how different plastics melt when they take them out of the oven in different temperatures to understand, to really touch the plastic and try to get a feel for it, but then also understand the physical properties or the chemical properties. So we did also experiments where I had the different types of liquids there to see that some plastics would sink, others won't, depending on liquid. So we also had, for instance, glycerin, where everything stays atop, or like ethanol, where almost everything sinks. So seeing like the diversity of plastic and really in a hands-on way, it's very powerful. And and it works well, and it's also fun. But yeah, going to the machines, doing your own little. We used to make a clip, the piranha clip that's developed by Dresden, the precious plastic in Dresden. They're called Kunststoffschmiede. And what actually didn't, what was really amazing, we finished up with about an hour and a half long so-called designathon. So after all the previous sessions, we did what is here part 5. Let me see where it is. Oh, here. So really, that's called how to reduce plastics, and then really start with that's called ideation sheet. So basically, to create ideas, you don't start with the creation, but you start with the problem around plastics that you would like to solve, and then it has step-by-step things where we lead the kids to think about the problems and finding solutions. And after they are done with these ideas, they can generate some basic ideas, which then basically get a blank piece of paper where they can do a sketch, a poster, and do work about how to, solve plastic problems. And it's amazing how well that worked actually, and how great ideas kids will do. And for instance, we worked with in a neighborhood which has, let's say, it's very, plastic recycling is really not the major problem that those kids and those families have at top of their mind. So it's a very poor neighborhood, and they see even a lot of trash on the street. So it's basically when one of the ideas of the children is really make bioproducts or sustainable products more affordable. So to see that it's sometimes affordability is really an issue about how sustainable you can behave and live. So and just seeing the ideas was really, really, wonderful, and they were engaged. And afterwards we presented the ideas, then they did the presentations, answered questions. So it was a really fun session. After we gave them a little bit of input, how to do and what to do, how creative they could be. And some of them tried to work on laws to reduce plastic, governmental ideas, others like campaigns. So it was some were more material to really develop new products, but it was all over the place. So there's one more question, Osvaldo.
Yes, hello. Yes, I have 2 questions.
Yeah.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah, I do hear quite well.
Yes, my first question is, which are the most common ideas of kids after learning about the recycle system, the economy, circular economy, and which are the most common ideas after learning everything? This is my first one. Mm-hmm. And the second, where are you working? Are you working at school, or are you implementing after school programs or summer programs? I don't know. So that's 2 questions.
Well, the first one, the most we did it. It depends. I don't have a big selection. We did it with 2 classes, or was it 3? No, with 2 classes. One with about 8th graders and one with 11th graders. So it depended a lot So the 11th graders, gosh, it was very different, but from the between the two groups, but it was also what we did with the 8th graders. We gave, I think it's many of them jumped on the most recent thing that we discussed in class. So, but one of these ideas where I said with affordability was from the 8th graders. We also mentioned the example with the soap recycling. So what they built with this, what I showed you with 3 shampoo bottles, and get so reduce, and it was FAMO guided. We had really actually asked them to do something where you reduce packaging by basically avoiding the packaging, and what they came up with was soda making machine. So you don't have to buy soda bottles, but instead, buy small packages with concentrate and use tap water from home. So I think that was FAMO guided, so it's very difficult to say what the most common idea is, because we gave them a lot of inputs which they basically hooked on. We did not do that with 11 or 12th graders, with all the kids, and they were far more also independent in their work anyway, so there are 2 factors, and there we had a very diverse set of ideas. So the work, it was like 7 or 8 groups. Some of them built ships to go in the ocean and collect plastics, and others worked on laws, third worked on campaigns to but I think a lot of them also do really go into design, into replacing plastic, for instance, with bamboo. And that was, I think, maybe the most common with the 8th graders, and as well, replacing plastics, I would say, probably also with the older ones. I don't quite remember. And
I'm sorry. Let me understand something. So their ideas are like categorized, like they want to make a collection system for a collection for plastic collection system. Other students want to make recycling plastics, and others want to reduce plastic. So their ideas are different. The thing that I'm understanding. Am I right?
Yeah, that's correct. So they were very, very different, and that was really amazing to see. You let them work for 45 minutes. I think that's actually a workshop that one can do maybe a whole day. So give them more time and reiterate. They basically worked on this first sheet with the problems. Really start with the problem you want to solve, work through the steps, and then go into the design process. And then really do your design. And the next step was present your design. And that was amazing how different and how much the ideas were, how they want to solve those things. And that's especially with all the kids, youth actually, where after the experience that the smaller kids did a lot of grab different inputs that we did in the session right before. We did some of those inputs like a couple of days before, such that they were not so present and we didn't to avoid the so-called priming effect. So we had then much more diverse ideas. So I think I would say, if you do that, get amazed and trust that they can come up with ideas, and they enjoy coming up with ideas, and presenting, and then really go into debate. And I think this is a design process you can really reiterate, have like a feedback session with the whole class where each group presents their ideas, but then give them maybe in second step a second piece of paper where they can improve about the concept and really experience how a design process works. So that's about the experiences of letting them do and be creative. So trusting that it's gonna work. So that was the hard part, We wanted to guide too much with the first group, and it worked much better when we guided less. And how we work, there was like a period where I basically had two jobs. That's not my main job, Precious Plastic. It's I do that as a citizen. It's with a couple of friends. We care about those things. We have ideas. We want to do things, and we got the funding from the municipal services in Hamburg, and they also organize and made the contacts with schools. But also work. I have like two kids who go to school, so contact with their teachers and try to. It's a very non-linear process, so it depends how much time we have, and as of now, John, who was very fundamental in building the machines, the small machines, he's right now working on different projects, so it's really networking, and that's part of the work that we need to do to find sponsors such that we can build the things, to find a room, and also contact school, basically find sponsors, but also find outlets where we can present this. Networking is a big part of the activity, and it is time consuming. And right now it's resting quite a bit because making this project with developing this teaching units was a lot of work that we need to focus a little bit more back to our lives. But I think once we recover, we are very happy to share and collaborate and go on. But we are pretty independent in Hamburg in terms of we are not an association. Just everybody works as much time they have and whenever they can. And sometimes we have good synergies, and sometimes it's like right now. Rather low, or work more independently, so they. Thank you. Thanks also for your feedback. I won't mind. Sorry, are there some more questions? Or maybe, if not, if you give me a feedback as well for the last few minutes that we have about, you can also write it later in the Padlet. But thank you very much for participating and for the working with me, for watching the videos and giving me the questions that I need to present at work. So it's everything here is in an interactive process. And maybe if you can tell me what is the most important thing you take home from this workshop. You can just chat, put your microphone on, or use the Padlet and choose the form in which you want to reply, but I would appreciate it very much if you let me know. What is the most important take-home message from this workshop for you? Yeah. The videos and the videos are not open source, but Creative Commons. So I think since they're paid for by the FOSS project, we cannot make them such that you can use them and show them, but not really transform them, except for translations. That's okay. But yeah, I'll be also, if you're would be also very happy to hear from you, your feedback, how it worked for you, if you tried to use that materials. But yeah, also get inspired from the Padlets. I might, you can copy and transform. That's fully Creative Commons license for the worksheets and exercises. So do the best out of it. So. Yeah, thanks for your interest, and I think if no one typing, I would say maybe we can also just close the session a bit earlier. I'll wait another minute for questions and would reply, but if nothing comes, I would just close a bit earlier. Yeah. Have a great day, everybody, and bye-bye. And enjoy the 516 conference. It's a great event.